Hi everybody, this is Kara. Welcome to Glazing with AMACO. And today I'm kind of excited because this is the first time that I should be able to see comments. If you have specific comments about what I'm doing today, please go ahead and comment, and if it is relevant to what we're doing, I will address it during the video. So today I'm using Shino Matcha Gloss. This is one of the Shino glazes. It can be used on any kind of clay body, any color of clay body. I'm using it on a white stoneware, but because of the high iron content, it is always going to look rather red. So it'll give an appearance like it's on an iron clay body. And where it's thick, and by that I mean three coats, where it's thick, it will be green, a very deep foresty green. If you're using one of the Shino glazes and you're finding that you're not getting the color that you're expecting, like for example, if you're using acai and it's not coming out kind of a blue-gray, or you're using hibiscus and it's not coming out pink, or you're using matcha or oolong and they're not coming out green, you need to apply more coats. So I have my wear. I'm going to work on the outside today. So I'm going to put my hand inside. Now, the Shino glazes can seem kind of watery. That is normal. They should not go on thick, but that still is applied the same way that I apply other glazes. And I really like using the Shinos on surfaces that are highly textured. I think it really enhances the qualities of the glaze. If you're using a smooth surface, if you're using these on a smooth surface, the results can come out rather streaky. So you have to be really careful about how you're applying. But if you're using a textured surface, they really like that. So where they're thick, you'll get more color. Where they're thin, where they break over the edges, you'll get more of an iron color. So I'm going to set that aside. Now I'll put the glaze on the inside, one coat. Notice I reload often. Now, I can't be sure, but I believe that we also have closed captioning today for the first time. So if you have it set for closed captioning, you may be able to see the simultaneous text. You will notice that the Shinos dry very quickly. Okay, so I'll set that aside. And I'm going to talk about what I'm going to do today. So I brought in some of our test cups from Matcha Gloss, and you'll see these are on a white clay, but you see where it's on the white clay it breaks brown. Can you see that? Does that show up well? So this is the Matcha Gloss, SH-45 Matcha Gloss, with PC-57 Smoky Merlot over it. And this is one of the combinations I think is really, really beautiful. The Smoky Merlot, where it's thick, gets these wonderful kind of floats, and the purple and the green together is a combination I think is really beautiful. That might be because I spent a lot of time in New Orleans, and of course, if you spent any amount of time in New Orleans, you think that purple, green, and gold go together because everything in New Orleans is those colors. So I really love the purple and the green together, and it has this nice kind of drizzle where the two glazes mix together. So you can see how on the white clay it does give it an iron look. So you can use this on any color of clay. It's always going to look pretty much the same. I also like this one. This is Chun Plum, PC-45, also over Matcha Gloss. And it comes out a kind of more pink to russet sort of red. But again, I really love this. These, by the way, are 3 coats and 3 coats. 3 coats of Matcha Gloss, 3 coats of PC, and they're fired to cone 6. So if you fire them to cone 5, they're going to be a little bit less running, not a huge amount. And this is what we're going to do today is the Matcha Gloss as the base, 3 coats, and then 3 coats of the Aventurine PC-64. I might back that down to 2 coats just because Aventurine can be really runny, but I love how it gets a really subtle sparkle. So it's almost a black with this subtle gold sparkle in it. And keep in mind that when you're looking at these, that the top coat of glaze, the whole thing was 3 coats of the Matcha Gloss brushed on, and then the PC was applied only to the very top portion. So anything that you see below this level is where the glaze is running. That goes for this too. Where you see how the glaze has come down, that's where it's running, because the glaze was only applied to this line. So I'll set those aside, and this is the one we're going to work with today. But I really love the different colors that you get, the float that happens. It's really quite lovely. So, second coat. So that was 1. Here is 2. As I said, the Shino dries really fast. Also notice I do take it right down to the bottom. The Shinos don't move very much. The gloss Shinos can move a little bit, especially when being layered, but they really don't move very much. The matte Shinos do not move. And if you are having problems with your matte Shino being too dry, you may have to take it up a cone hotter or fire it in a warmer part of the kiln. The matte Shinos will get glossier as they go up. So at cone 6, they're kind of a nice satin. But if you want them to be matte, fire them right at cone 5 or even a little bit shy of cone 5. You can see from all the red on my knuckles where I had my hand in the pot. It's very, very high iron glaze. All the Shinos are food safe. They are all suitable for food surfaces, regardless of which color they are. And I really love just the earthiness of them. There we go. There is our second coat. There we go. I'm going to let that dry for a moment. So the other glaze that I'm going to use today is the PC-64 Aventurine. And Aventurine is not food safe, so I'm going to use this just on the outside and just a band at the top, maybe coming down in diagonals to kind of imitate the diagonals of the slip texture on there. And it is a runny glaze, so always be careful using PC-64 because it can run a lot, especially when layered. But it does do this beautiful gold sparkle and is really lovely in combination with things. So this is one of the combinations that I like it with, but it is also really lovely with iron yellow It's great on top of underglazes, especially like Radiant Red, and is an interesting accent glaze. So it does craze, and that's why it's not considered food safe, is the crazing. But it is also a very high iron glaze. So we'll be using that next. And is this dry enough for me to put a third coat on yet? Wow. Like I said, Shino's dry really, really fast. So, third coat. Another way to do Shinos, if you want to really enhance the breaking, is to apply one coat, one generous coat, and then sponge it back, and then apply 2 more coats on top. And by sponging it back, you'll just end up with glaze in the deeper areas, especially on a textured surface. That works. So you end up with glaze in the deeper surfaces, so then you have a variation of 2 to 3 coats instead of just 3 even coats. And I'm going to clean up my foot a little bit because it may not run, but of course if it's on the foot, it is totally going to stick. There we go. Clean up my hands. It is a messy, messy glaze. Just as a quick aside, I love using either vinyl or linoleum for glazing on because it's so easy to clean up. There's my Shino. I have only 2 coats on the inside. I'm going to let that, I'm going to put a third coat on later after we're off camera, just to save us a little time. There we go. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that Aventurine can thicken a lot, and some of the older formulations, the earliest formulations of it, can be really gummy. If you have Aventurine that is so thick that you cannot get a brush into it, that it's like Jello, contact our tech support team before you do anything to it. Don't add water. Just talk to our tech support team about what you can do if it's too thick to glaze with. Now this one is nice and fluid. It's just perfect. There we go. And as I said, I'm going to do 2 coats. Now this is a vase, so I could do it along the top edge. I doubt that anyone would ever use this as a drinking vessel. It's kind of an odd shape for a drinking vessel, not to mention size, but I'm going to let that be just right at the edge. And I'm not going to take it too low because I don't want it to run too much. I want to get some nice running, not a lot. If you're really concerned about running, you can always fire something on a piece of scrap shelf or on a cookie. And then if it does run, you're not ruining your kiln and your kiln shelves. This is going to take a little bit longer to dry. So I'm going to actually, I think I'm going to do some, going to follow the texture. We have a textural slip that we added onto this. So we have a casting version of this, but you can also do the same thing with the glaze. by taking some of your throwing scraps. Since we're using a deflocculated slip, to thicken it up and make it textural, we just add a little bit of vinegar, and then it goes on and is nice and thick. You can also do a similar thing with throwing scraps, but in that case you would deflocculate them and then reflocculate using vinegar. So it's a little bit more complicated, or you can just use the slip straight out of your throwing sludge and just mix it up really well so it's like a whipped cream. So that's going to take a little bit longer. If anyone has any questions, you can actually ask right now and I would be able to see your questions. I do see that Kristen Odell says hi, but it's nice to be able to address questions as they come up live, and I really appreciate that. So, still not quite dry yet. I'm going to let that go. What other things can I tell you about the Shinos? So, as I said, there's matte and gloss. Each of the colors comes in a matte version and a gloss version. If your matte version is coming out too dry, like rough, like sandpaper, you may need to fire it a bit hotter. So you may need to go up a cone or fire it in a hot part of your kiln. The gloss version should be fine at cone 5 or at cone 6. It'll just always be a little bit glossier than the matte version. Still got a little bit of dampness, but I'm going to go ahead and very gently add a little bit more glaze. As I've said before, and as you'll notice, I do apply glaze rather thickly. And make sure that you have an adequate amount. Is that? A little crumble of glaze on the edge there. You'll notice I use soft, natural fiber brushes, or any kind of brush that allows you to apply a lot of material is best and applies it in an even way. There we go. So I will finish this up, and I'll fire this week, and I'll post an image and you can see how this combination comes out. I expect it to come out a lot like that. So like I said, instead of just having a straight line as was done on this, I've actually come down with the glaze. That wasn't what happened here, it just ran, but I think that these will encourage more running. We'll see how that turns out. Maybe good, maybe not, we'll see. So thank you for joining me, I really appreciate it. And if you have any questions after viewing this, go ahead and drop the comments. Drop it in the comments and I will address it later. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you guys next week.